everyone. My name is Julianne Meyer, and I am the host of Own Your Wellness. I'm excited to be here today because I'm going to be joined by Ari Gronich, the performance therapist who has been one of the most sought-after therapists and trainers for elite athletes, corporate culture, and wellness, and as an international industry speaker and author. He is the founder and CEO of Achieve Health USA and the Performance Therapy Academy, and he can be found interviewing world changers, Olympic athletes, influencers, policymakers, and more on his podcast, Create a New Tomorrow. He has a vision to help society achieve our vision for a better world. So let's bring on Mr. Ari Gronich. Hello, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you here. Ever since I discovered you, because I'm, like the first person ever, I've been excited to have this conversation. So I would just love to start off with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your own wellness journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kind of go with the brief version of how I got started. So I was 7 years old. I started getting hot flashes and migraines. By the time I was 12, I had to be injected into puberty. By the time I was 14, I had to have breast reduction surgery and had just was gaining weight and gaining weight and gaining weight. When I was 18 years old, I went whitewater rafting. I was taking a homeopathic remedy it was a snake venom, basically. Mm-hmm. And I went whitewater rafting. I got heat stroke, sunstroke, combination of the snake venom mixed with some Mountain Dew. And I went into anaphylactic shock and I was dead for 26 minutes. So I basically, by the time I got to the hospital, I was already stopped breathing. Took the doctors about 26 minutes to bring me back. And I woke up in the hospital a few days later and I said, I think I need to be a healer. And that's where I got started.
Well, obviously I'm fascinated by this story because I'm a spiritual person, and not that we're going to go into that, but do you remember anything about being dead?
Unfortunately, I tell people there was no light, there was no tunnel, there was no profound anything other than I think I just, at that point, I was fed up with both sides of medicine, and mm-hmm. I'm like, I think that I just need to be the one to do it.
Well, that's absolutely fantastic. So at least something good came out of it. I mean, if you're going to die, it better be for a purpose.
Absolutely.
So you decided at a very young age that you needed to be a healer. So I'm curious, how did that even start out for you? Because now you've been in the business for a while and, you made a name for yourself and so how did it start?
Yeah. Funny enough, during school. So I was going to school. I was homeless. I was working 2 jobs and going to school. I had sent out letters to like 30 different places and I chose one. The place I chose was the perfect place. The owner of the school had no idea how to own a school, but she knew how to be a therapist. She had been a therapist like 40 plus years and knew everybody in the industry. And so I happened to choose this school that would fly in experts from all over the globe. Wow. And we would learn intensive, like weeks at a time, 10-hour days sometimes of intensive coursework on just one set of techniques, and then another set of techniques, and then another set of techniques. And so it was really cool and very unusual. But for instance, one of our teachers was a professor at Oregon Health and Science University. And so we got to go in and do cadaver labs. We got to do other, things that you wouldn't normally get to do in, say, a massage school. By my 3rd month in school, I was running the clinic. And our school backed up to the campuses of Intel, Nike, and Tektronix in Beaverton, Oregon. And we needed clients. So, for a clinic. So I said, well, why don't we just bring our clinic to them? Mm-hmm. And not knowing what I was doing, started 3 of the first corporate wellness programs in the country with these major companies. I hear some of those wellness programs have gone on and and flourished. But I didn't know what I was doing back then. And then by my 6th month, we basically were at a health fair, like a statewide health fair.
Mm-hmm.
And Richard Simmons was there, and Victoria Jackson. I don't know if you remember, she was a ESPN aerobics instructor, kind of like a Jane Fonda type for the, early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And so I worked on both of them. And then a couple of pro sports players came in, and I ended up working on them. They decided that I needed to come to the game that night with them. And on the court, I basically ran out onto the court during practice. Somebody tripped, was like twisted their ankle.
Mm-hmm.
My instinct was go fix. And I didn't know what I was doing. Again, I just ran out and ended up with the team for like a year as an intern, working with the athletes, working with the trainers, learning. So my background was very odd for how I got started to become the performance therapist.
Now, I find that fascinating too, because it seems like you're just in flow. Wherever you needed to be, you just happen to be there and step up to the plate, not even realizing that that's what you were doing.
Yeah, and it's funny. I can't force flow either. It really kind of sucks because every time I've tried to force the flow, it hasn't happened. So, yeah, I don't know why and what. I know that my set of circumstances have been horrific in some ways, and the horror has been able to turn me into somebody that turns beauty out of that horror. So I don't think that I would want anybody else to have to experience the things I had to experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it was uniquely designed to forge me into who I became.
You don't know this, but I used to work in addiction recovery. And so one of the sayings that I used to always hear at AA meetings was things like, I'm a grateful alcoholic. And I was thinking, what is wrong with you? Who wants to be, an alcoholic, or they're grateful for their journey, but they wouldn't wish it on anybody else either. And, I understand that now. It took me a long time to understand that it took them that experience or those experiences to create who they are. And that's why they're grateful, not because they had a drinking problem, but because of who they are. Yeah, it's fascinating that some people have to go through so much stuff. And you didn't let it bring you down. You turned it into, lemonade, lemons to lemonade. That's amazing.
I do the best I can, but I'll tell you, just, authentic, your audience deserves it, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
not easy. It's hard. A lot of days of screaming and crying and, being in the mirror, not wanting to live. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot that goes into that. But I'm very grateful that I've had the experiences that I've had. And I'm grateful to be able to do some of the work that I'm able to do because I was able to translate those experiences that I had into amazing, freaking awesome therapies.
That's amazing in it of itself. I just, and I appreciate the authenticity of admitting that, it's not easy. It wasn't easy. And, there's still, I'm sure, times where it's like, oh my God, can you leave me alone for just, I just want to live without all this hassle, at least just a few days. Come on. But, it's like you learn all these techniques and ways to handle it. So I love that. So for our audience today, can you explain what a performance therapist is, what that means?
Yeah. So at the very base level, people perform. Their bodies are performing a duty every single day, whether that duty is walking to the bathroom, getting up out of your car, being able to get into your car, or for an athlete at those high levels of performance, those minuscule tenths of seconds mm-hmm. of performance. So it's everything in between. And I'm blessed as a performance therapist to have worked with the minutia. And with the when you work with the minutia, you learn a very different way of thinking than if you're, say, looking at whether somebody can walk instead of a 20-minute mile, an 18-minute mile, right? Not very recognizable for most people. They wouldn't notice a difference like that, right? Whereas tenths of seconds to elite athletes, they notice. And so you learn how to look at those little itty bitty things that cause massive changes, and then the massive things that you do to create the final bit of changes. It's kind of the opposite of what most people would think.
That's fascinating to me, because I never even thought of, well, I'm not an athlete in that, a professional athlete or anywhere near that. My niece would say, oh, hell no. But, that's true. To me, though, I have been a personal trainer, and going from a 20-minute mile to an 18-minute mile, that's something to be like super proud of. So, but I understand what you mean. Most people don't notice that. It's not that big of a deal. It's not even, they're just not.
They don't notice. They don't notice the difference in their body between that, because they're not conditioned to. Right. But an elite athlete would notice tenths of seconds. Now, somebody might notice a difference between like a 20-minute mile and a 15-minute mile. Yeah. Right. That might be a noticeable difference. But unless you're really measuring every aspect of what they do at the beginning, middle, and end of a treatment protocol, then most people don't perceive the shifts that are happening. It's like, if you go to a gym and you work out, the first day you don't see anything. The second day you don't see anything. That maybe that first month you don't see anything. And then all of a sudden, like 6-8 weeks later, everybody's saying, what have you been doing? You look different, right? It didn't happen overnight, but you didn't perceive those little minutia changes quite as readily as you may have if you were looking for them.
That's true. That's very true. So when you're helping people, do you help them stay free from injury, or is it more just trying to improve upon, or a little bit of both? Because I can't imagine that at that level that, you've got to be careful to some respect, to your own body.
Right. So typically when I would work with somebody, whoever it is, whether it's somebody who's coming in from a car accident, somebody who's, tripped and fell, somebody who's been an elite athlete, it doesn't really matter. I want to have a large picture of what's going on. So I ask a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions about the entire history. I ask a lot of questions about their present, and some uncomfortable questions about the people that are in their world around them. Because if I'm going to create a plan for somebody, I'm going to want to know that their support system is in place. And so I ask them a lot of questions to find out what is going on, where they've been, and where they want to go. Not just where they think it's possible for them to get to, not where they're just hoping to maybe get out of enough pain to be in okay condition to, but if they were feeling good, what would they want to do with that? So I get them into a state where their mentality isn't, I'm going to do this because I'm supposed to, or I should. It's, I really want my body to be able to climb a mountain. I really want my body to be able to play a round of tennis without hurting. Or in some cases, I really want to be able to get out of my car and go walk around an entire grocery store without feeling like I have to sit down or lean on a cart, right? So it could be as simple as that to as deep as, I want to win the gold medal and I need to have this to do it.
Well, what I'm hearing too is that it doesn't matter to you if it's a gold medal or somebody who wants to walk around the grocery store, because it's a goal and you want to help them achieve that. And it's possible if they could get out of their own way. So, I mean, a lot of it's mental. I mean, a lot of it isn't, but a lot of it is if you think you can. because if you don't even think that you can, then there's no chance of you actually even following through on the actions.
That it's also what's been your history. You know, one of the reasons I asked the question is how many times have you tried before? How many people have you gone to that have not worked out for you? You know, like what is it that you actually attempted? So I'm getting to the deep dark parts of what's blocking them from going far, you know, going further. You know, one of the keys, this is something that professional athletes have to deal with all the time, is they're being told that they'll never be as good as they once were.
Yeah.
Right. And when you're a normal citizen, not a professional athlete with professional athlete resources, and you get injured and you don't have a clue what you're going into, and you don't know, you know, what you're supposed to be experiencing, you know, it's really difficult for people to decide to get healthy because they don't know what they're missing. Right.
Exactly.
And so the mentality is, oh, I've never been healthy, so I don't even know who I would be if I were healthy.
Exactly. They can't even imagine.
Right. Yeah. And so you have to, the first thing when in that first questions section is you're drawing out of them who they want to really be, what they want their body for, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And it can be, for different things for different people. I love that. So something I really want to touch on too, that you said was that, you know, the importance of having the support system, or, you know, knowing what's there, because we don't live on an island by ourselves, and we are affected by other people, whether we want to be or not. So what would you say to somebody who doesn't really have a support system, or somebody even who has one that's not exactly supportive?
Well, let me ask you a question. Are you married?
No, but okay. I live with my boyfriend.
Okay. So if your boyfriend decided to become a vegan, and you own a cattle farm, okay, how easy is it going to be for him to be vegan?
Yeah, that would be pretty tough.
Okay. So if you're in a situation and you're wanting to get your body healthy, and the people around you are eating fried chicken all day long, right? How easy is it for you to be the one in the corner eating the broccoli, you know, or, you know, like you can imagine what people's minds can come up with just having one thing in their way. Yeah. I'll give you another scenario. This is something that happened to me. I was doing some functional medicine consulting, and I was going to put somebody on an elimination diet. That elimination diet takes out anything that's possible to cause an inflammatory response. So all nightshades, everything is gone, right? That includes tomatoes. Tomatoes are a nightshade. This person was Italian. This person handed me $5,000 and said, keep it. I'm not going to stop eating my tomatoes. Not even for 3 weeks. Because that's all the elimination plan is for, is 3 weeks. Couldn't get it through the head, right? That was the stopping point. Wow. For that person. Now, what would it have been had I gotten that information ahead of time, right? Because I would have asked enough questions. Now, I don't know. I asked a lot of questions, and I never got to the tomato debacle. But you could understand, like, people don't know what's always in the way of them becoming healthy. They don't know why. They don't know, like, you could be on I was eating all the low fat, non-fat, healthy, cholesterol-free stuff, and I became 250 pounds, and I don't know why. I did everything the way they told me. Well, okay. That's part of the problem. You did everything the way they told you. You know, what do you say? What do you say to that? Like, you have to be able to say to that person, I'm a little different, so I'm going to test you. I'm going to do as much tests as I possibly can up front. and I'm going to find out as much information as I can up front so that when I build you a plan, I know for sure that it's doable, that we will get the performance, the results that we're looking for every time, 100% of the time. And that's the only way you could begin. Now, how many personal trainers do you know who have been taught to do that?
Zero.
Big zero. How many chiropractors?
Yeah, probably zero. Yeah, they just want to crack you up.
Therapists, surgeons, doctors, right? Now you have to do that when you're working with an elite athlete, right? You have to, because if somebody comes in, they have 6 months to a competition and they're injured. And if they don't make that competition, that's going to cost them millions of dollars. That may cost them a placement in the Olympics. That may cost, right? There is no option for failure, right? At least not the way I perceive it. If I failed, I wouldn't get hired again. Yeah. Right. So I need to make sure that I get the results, that the performance that I'm creating is the results that they're wanting. And so you have to behave in a certain way. You have to plan in a certain way. So I figured the only way I could do that, and this is remember, I've been doing this 27 years, over a long time of learning and failing and mistakes. Yeah. That the more questions you ask the very first day, the very first moment you meet the person, number one, the longer they'll last, the better the results will be, the more they'll be an advocate for you as a therapist or trainer or person in general, because they know that you give a damn about them, not about just the finances. And that alone helps the mentality of the people you're working with have a belief system that they too, it could be possible for them. That person actually cares enough to get to know me.
Yeah. Now, I think that that's such a beautiful point too, because you're investing in them and it makes it easier for them to invest in themselves as well, because they see somebody else doing it. So, it's like, oh, I am worth it. I mean, in a perfect world, it wouldn't be the case, but sometimes it takes somebody else, to see yourself from somebody else's point of view. I love that. I love that you ask questions because, like you said, personal trainers don't, chiropractors don't, surgeons don't. I mean, nobody practically, I shouldn't say nobody, but, most people don't.
Very few people, doctors, practitioners try to create a plan around your health, right? Yeah. Now, if everybody completed that, like everybody that went to a doctor, if they had all the tests up front, right? They came to the doctor and you had a circle of doctors around you, different, professions, different specialties. And they all sat around and said, okay, here's what we got to do. I'm the chiropractor. We got to get your spine aligned. I'm the therapist, massage. We got to get your muscles to agree with that. I'm the surgeon. There's a couple things that can't be done with, the soft tissue. We need to do that surgically, but we got the therapist right here for you for when they get out. There's a plan that you're putting into place there. Every step is taken care of. The person feels cradled, feels nurtured, feels like they're supported. Actually cared about. Yeah, supported.
No, I love that. So something else that I heard you speak a little into is that, and I'm putting words in your mouth. Please correct me if I am, but it's more that we're like bio individuals. So, what might work for one person might not work for another, and trying to do what somebody, just said without even paying attention to what your body is telling you is a huge problem. People don't listen to themselves. They don't listen to their bodies. They don't listen to how they're feeling. For me, my perfect example was when I was trying to get fit for the first time, my trainer put me on this high protein diet. I've never been so angry in my whole life. I mean, it made me angry. As soon as I, changed my diet, I was fine again. But I was just, I call it protein anger. It's like, but most people would just stick through it. And I'm like, and he was telling me I'm crazy. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Well, just in case nobody's ever told you, okay? So protein gets processed by the liver, right? In Chinese medicine, the liver is anger. Okay. The liver is the processor of anger, of angry. So when you're processing a lot of protein through your system, especially high amounts like in a high protein diet, the getting angry part literally is your liver processing
all that protein.
Anger. So if you're doing something that sparks up your kidneys, for instance, right? That might be something you might find yourself a little worried about. Something, things might worry you. You might have the piss scared out of you, right? That in Chinese medicine, again, is worry. So each of your organs are actually related to a different emotion.
Yes. No, I love that. And not a lot of people talk about it. Not a lot of people know about that. But yeah, that was fascinating because at that time I had no idea. But I'm not crazy. I was never this angry in my entire life. So yes, but anyway, we do need to go to a commercial break. So we'll be back in just a minute. I don't even want to go to a commercial break. This is so fascinating to me. But as I mentioned, we do have to do that. So for those of you who are watching us live, I just want to say hello. You are always appreciated. And we'll be right back after these messages.
Now, you can vibrationally align your aura. You can gain a larger and spiritual perspective on life, relationships, God, people, wellness, and money. You can also have moments of meditation and reflection any time of the day. And reading the thrilling, adventurous, and mystical story of Shiga will just add more faith to your daily experience of the mystery of the universe.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
As human beings, we are meant to thrive in an environment where true love is shared, where we are welcome just as we are. A space we connect with others with the single purpose to find God as love within. A place we learn to raise our consciousness and vibration for happiness, wellness, and wealth creation. Transformative, an online spiritual gathering for everyone. This invitation is sent to you by www.livingfaithschool.org.
Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, my name is Julianne Meyer. I am the host of Own Your Wellness, and today's special guest is Ari Gronich. Let's bring him back. Yay! So, during the break, I was thinking about how you have a podcast, and I really want you to speak about that. Where can we find it? All that fun stuff.
Yeah, so Create a New Tomorrow can be found at any podcast place, whether it be Apple or Stitcher or Spotify, etc., or on YouTube at Create a New Tomorrow. It's a cool show. It's all about how we activate our vision for a better world. How tips and tricks that every guest gives are amazing. So I'm always asking, what are some things that people could do today, right now, to create a new tomorrow? And so I've had Olympic gold medalists, world champions. I've had Forbes Riley was on the show. I mean, we've had some tremendous guests. We had a hypnotist who did some perception things about perception and how we perceive things. So, we've had magician, hypnotists, psychologists, all kinds of people talking about the world and the systems. And this next year is going to be a lot more about how we can actualize solutions. So I'm going to be talking to a lot more people that are actually out on the field doing things that my audience can get involved with. So, things like child trafficking. I have a number of friends with charities that people can join and start, working with now if that's something that they're interested in. And so I like it because it gives me a platform to actually do the things that I see that need to be done. I have a saying, let's stop gathering to complain and start collaborating to succeed. Let's create solutions instead of talking about the problems.
Amen. I literally just wrote something today about being a solution creator instead of a problem solver. So that's amazing. So at this website, is that where also they can find that as well? And then I'm assuming tips and tricks and things as well, or?
Yeah, the blog is on there. So every episode we do a blog, and
I love it. Awesome. So it's funny. I think you and I have interviewed some of the same people. I had Forbes. I interviewed Forbes for something I did last summer. And I think we might have interviewed some of the same magician hypnotists as well.
Probably.
That's so funny. I love it. And then also we have another website for you. What can people find here at Achieve Health USA?
Yeah. So I'm creating a mastermind. It's not like I'm not promoting it or anything like that, but I'm creating a mastermind group. The mastermind group that I'm creating is all about questions and the questions that we ask. And so I ask very, very poignant questions that lead very specific places. And so I found that a lot of the people listening to the show were asking for something. And this is something that I could offer. And it's literally, I ask a lot of questions of you to answer for yourself. And you have a team of people to hang out and play with and be really raw and vulnerable with. And the goal is that by the time a year is done, you will have been on the route. You will have gotten from and to the point at which you're actually earning money in the life you want rather than in the life you had because you thought you had to.
That's such an important thing. People get stuck in this idea that they have to do exactly what they've been doing because they've always done it. And they can't really think about, maybe I could actually do something I really love while I'm making money or make money doing it. I mean,
exactly.
There is obviously risk involved, but there's risk involved in driving down the freeway. So, how do you want to live your life?
Yeah. These days we had this big awakening, I call it, right? The awakening of the pandemic is awakened a lot of people to what they've lacked, right? A lot of people lacked time. Yeah. Just time to breathe, time to relax, time to actually think about what they might want in this world. And as you notice, we have this big thing about signs being up. There's more jobs available than there are people who want them. And people are not willing to accept less than what they feel they deserve anymore. Yeah. So we had this awakening of, people are not going to work for you if you're going to pay them $10 an hour for heavy labor, right? They're just not going to do it anymore. They don't have to. And so they're not going to. And so we get to a place where people get to decide again, like, who am I? How do I want to live? What kind of life do I want to live? Mm-hmm. Is this the life that I chose, or the one that I was born into that my family chose for me? Mm-hmm. Jim Rohn has a great saying, like, you don't have to do the next 5 years like you did the last 5 years. You're a human being. You could get up and move. You don't have to live in the same place. You could go wherever. Yeah. Like if you were a bird, you'd have to do flying south for the winter. Why? Because natural instinct. But you're a human being. You could go wherever. You can learn everything that you've had experience from. You could take and learn from, and the next day switch life and switch towns and switch perspectives and create an entirely different world for yourself, right? We have that ability. And so I want people to remember that we made this all up anyway. This is all a big dream. It's all a major illusion. We created it out of thin air. It was our imaginations. And so we don't have to be married to what is just because it was created for us in most cases. We can actually say, that doesn't work for me. I want to improve upon that. I want to make it better. And I tell somebody, like, let's take all emotion out of it. Is the system optimized or is it sub-optimized? Yeah. Can it run better? If it can run better, then that's kind of the obligation, right? Yeah. If it can run better, then we have an obligation to make it run better. So let's take the emotion of, well, my family has been digging coal for 100 years. Great. Now we're going to do something else, and we'll train your family to do that other thing so that they can have a completely different life. Did you want to have the life just because you were told you had to, because that was what you were trained to be? Like, is that even what you want? So it's just a matter of re-educating people that there is a place in your heart and in your mind where you don't have to be stuck wherever you're at.
Yeah. And I, as somebody, a former stuck person, I totally get why it feels real. It feels like there's no movement, but it's all an illusion, like you said. And it's fascinating too, because a lot of the times when you finally do end up moving out of the situation, whatever that may be, everything seems to fall into place. All those things that you were worried about work themselves out.
Exactly.
So it's kind of, it's like that trapeze story. Have you ever heard that one about how you have to, it's fabulous. It's a short story, but the point is that, you're fine on your little trapeze bar, and then all of a sudden you see another one in the distance, but you've got to let go of the one you have to reach the other one. And you always make the other one, but even if you didn't, there's a net underneath. So, but while you're flying through the air, it's a little scary.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Look, I don't know anybody who thinks that life at this point in time is supposed to be or is going to be easy. Whether you're a billionaire who has it all or somebody who's living on the street, you've had some kind of taste of struggle in the last year, 2 years. And so, let's not get all blamey and, whiny about it. I know I'm very capable of doing that, right? Yeah. Getting blamey and whiny. But I also know it doesn't serve a purpose in the long run. The purpose is let's figure out what it is that we could do to optimize things, right? Yeah. So for let's say the healthcare system, I have a very simple word: incentive. What is the incentive? If we change the incentive, this one word, if we change the incentive, the entire system has to rewrite itself to fit the incentive. So rather than the incentive being procedures equal money. Yeah. Right? If the incentive was results equal money, everything has to rewrite itself to fit amongst the incentive of you're going to get paid when you cure. So pharmaceutical companies are no longer going to get paid to treat a disease. They're only going to get paid if they create a cure. Doctors are not going to get paid for procedures. They're only going to get paid for you have diabetes one day and the next day you don't, you get a bonus. You have smoker one day, no smoker, not the, non-smoker the next day, you get a bonus. Heart disease one day, no heart disease the next day, you get a bonus. But we incentivize the result. If we incentivize the result, everything has to rewrite itself for that to be what is focused on. All fraud kind of comes out the window that way, right? All reason for fraud. There's no incentive to do things that are fraudulent because the only incentive is to get them healthy, right? Now that also cuts the bill quite a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right? So we could pay for all of that very easily just by changing that one sentence. We don't have to worry about who's paying who, whether it's insurance companies or governments or whatever. Just change that one thing. The whole system has to rewrite. And you do that with everything.
Yeah, but that requires thinking.
Yes.
That's the problem. It requires thinking.
That is the rub. That is the rub.
No, but that's a beautiful way to look at it too, because it's true. It's absolutely true. If you change that one thing, it's a domino effect. Everything else falls into line under that new paradigm. And I love that idea, because I've lived in other countries, and, I lived in Canada, for example, and for a while, and the healthcare system there is totally different. It was fabulous, but you also pay through the nose for taxes too. So, if you want to give up half of your paycheck straight up, then that's a great place to live. I mean, just saying, like, there's, if they just changed it, no matter where you are to that, then that would be.
Exactly. Like, Canada, right? Well, they're still in our system. It's just government paying for it instead of insurance company paying for it. It's still the same system of medicine. The incentives are still run the same way, right? Yeah. There are countries that have way better healthcare, and their results show it. And that is their incentive, is to get people healthy. Like their college is paid for, so they don't have to worry about their doctor bills. They have a salary, so they're not worried about what they're getting paid, right? Yeah. They get bonuses when they get results. What other job? Let's say, could we do that with the Senate and Congress? You only get paid for the results. Maybe everything would have to shift if that was the incentive, right? Yeah. Versus whatever the freaking incentive is now. I don't have a clue what it is, but it isn't moving the country forward in a way that makes the people happy, healthy, and financially viable, right? It's not that. We know that because we can tell. We have results to prove it.
Exactly. That's very accurate. We have the results to prove it. So you have a vision of your own, and I really want you to really touch on that because we're sort of talking about it now, but I'd like for you to elaborate.
Yeah. So, part of the vision is rewriting the healthcare system and doing that in a way that really feeds technology and advancement of technology and marries that technology with tradition. So I know that almost every medication that's made begins as a plant, an herb, a root, a flower, something live. So for instance, Valium is valerian root, right? So Valium is made from valerian root. So I know this. We have technology now that we can study things in their whole form, not just in their isolated subparticles, right? So I'd like to see some modern day testing with old traditional remedies to see and prove the anecdotal evidence that's been thousands of years of proven medicinal evidence, right? Yeah. So if we want to marry tradition, we have to marry tradition with science because we can't have consensus without that. So we have to talk each other's languages. And so in order to do that, my goal, one of them, is kind of bridging the gaps between medicine and tradition, between the sacred and, the sacred days of the medicine man who actually went to your house and would like hang out for a week and learn how you live and find out what it was that was causing your woes, right? So that we can do that kind of level of love and care, but with modern technology. Let's marry civilization. I have this book I'm writing, Tribal Living in a Modern World.
Ooh, I love that.
The first book is The Corporate Culture Revolution. The second one is about the medical system. But, the idea is, how do we marry tradition and technology together so that they are symbiotic and feed each other rather than destroy each other? So that's my mission.
I applaud you for that. I adore that. I just think it's such an innovative way to look at things, because people tend to look at it as one or the other. One's right, one's wrong. And it doesn't have to be like that. Who said? Why can't you have both?
And it never is. It never is.
It's true.
Exactly that.
Yeah. Well, that's my thing too. It's like, and I'm going to say something very controversial, and I don't know what I would do if I was in this situation because I don't have cancer, but I don't know that, pumping my body full of poison is the best way to cure an illness. I don't know that that is true. I know that it works for a lot of people. I also know it doesn't work for a lot of people, but I would think that there's got to be other ways, or to like figure out why I got it in the first place and maybe take care of that too, so it doesn't come back.
Right. So think about it this way. Okay. So disease is like having the absence of something, right? So if you have cancer of your lungs, what don't you have? Well, and you're looking at Chinese medicine, joy of life. The breath of life has been taken out of you. You're not breathing in deeply the fullness of life. Okay, that's what a Chinese medicine would say. Somebody else may have a different theory. That would be a Chinese medicine. So what I say to chemo is, your body is not got cancer because it doesn't have enough chemotherapy in it.
Exactly.
So if that's true, if that statement alone is true, then the next question would be, well, what does it not have that it needs? Yeah. Right? But that question is never asked. No. Like very rarely ever asked is, well, what is the thing that is needed for this, right? And so if you can dig into, again, we go back to the test. Don't guess. We go back to question, right? We can get to a level of causation that we can go, okay, that sounds like it could be the causative factor for all of these things. There's no more rooting to do, right? We can't root down further than this, at least in this place. So if you have cancer, you ask yourself, what don't you have? Okay, so what is the conditions of my body currently, right? You ask, okay, well, I'm going to take tests. I'm going to find out. Maybe I need some probiotics and some enzyme activity going on. Maybe I've lost some enzyme activity. Maybe I'm really low on D and D3. Maybe, there's other things that are happening in my body that could be more a causative factor. Why don't I try that first, right? Yeah. Why don't I try that first? No judgments about anything. Just say, I don't have this. I clearly am not having cancer because I have too little chemotherapy in me. Yeah. So I'm going to feed what I don't have. Let's see what happens. That's one way to look at it. One way to look at it is cancer is caused basically because sugar messes with your system and it causes your cells to divide and mutate, and that mutation sucks. And so if you cut all sugar out of your diet, you're going to pretty much get rid of the cancer. So that's one theory as well. So you see a lot of people going on these diets where they're just drinking bitter greens and, you know, juicing bitter greens and eating nothing with sugar in it. And they do that for a long enough period of time in a way that's nutritionally sound so that they cleanse their body of whatever it is that's causing the block of you being able to uptake the vitamin or nutrient that you're missing.
Yeah. No,
it's a really long explanation is to say chemo would be a choice that you could make maybe after having a little bit of knowledge and asking a lot of questions in advance, right?
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing from you too is that, well, one, you ask the right questions. You ask questions. But, you know, there's just, if you're not asking a good question, then you're not going to get a good answer either. So I like that you keep digging until you find what you need. And you keep, you know, not just, okay, well, somebody told me I need to do this, I'm going to do that. Instead of saying like, does that even make sense for me?
Right. Am I going to even be able to do that? Right. Yeah. I may be a smoker and you might tell me not to smoke. And it's funny. I had a medicine man I used to do sweat lodges with, and he used to say, because I asked him why every shaman I ever met smoked. And he said, you know, first of all, it's a prayer. So tobacco for Indian is a prayer. So you're taking in a prayer, breathing in a prayer, blowing it out to the sky, hoping that whatever goes up must come down. So the prayer will be answered. He said, second, until you're ready to take on every responsibility of another person, you can never ask them to stop doing something because you don't know if that's what's keeping them alive. That cigarette may be the one thing keeping that person alive at the moment. Yeah. It may be saving them because they're remembering to breathe in when they have that cigarette, right? So I never say blanket statements for everybody.
Yeah. No, I love that.
It's not. Look, how many times has somebody said to you, well, if I could do it, you could do it. And you feel like shit because you obviously can't do what they just did. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the truth. I mean, just because you can do it does not mean I can. Maybe I can get to a place in which I might be able to, maybe not. I may not have the mind for that, the hands for that, the tools for that job. I may have tools for a different job that makes me a genius in something else, right? And so I never say the blanket statement of everybody, like, because I can, you can. No.
Yeah.
I find the key. Every lock has a key. You have to find the right key. And
yeah, I'm glad you said that though, because I've been guilty of saying that before, and now I won't be, because I know my intention was always like, I didn't think I could either. But that's not thinking about the other side of what if they actually can't. So thank you for saying that. You changed me in the most beautiful way. We are almost out of time. So are there any final thoughts that you would love to share with the audience?
Well, let's see. Within the medical world, your show is all about owning your wellness, right? And in order to own your wellness, you kind of have to know a little bit about what wellness is, about what wellness isn't. And you're going to have to, unfortunately for you, research and go to many different practitioners before you find somebody that's right for you. But just like I ask a lot of questions, you need to ask a lot of questions of the therapists, of the chiropractors, of the trainers that you're going to find out if they are the right ones for you. They might have skills and talents that just are not going to be compatible with you particularly. And so it's not that they're bad or good or anything. It's just, we have to be willing to audition and interview our doctors, our therapists, our people, because really the idea is they're here. I'm here for you. I'm not here for a paycheck, right? The paycheck is just kind of cool that I get to have it, right? I'm not here for that. I'm here for your health. Whatever it is you're coming to me for, I'm here for that. Yes. And so you have to own that you're coming for something, and you have to own that the people who you're choosing to treat you give you what you're coming for. And if they're not, then you call them out on it and you stop treatment and you go find somebody else, because people won't change if they don't know. And most people who leave therapists never tell them why. And so the therapist or the trainer never knows that they were being a schmuck and they weren't getting the job done. And so, you know, I just tell you that because for an audience, like, you have to know what you're missing. And I'm finding out, you know, in the medical system, what I find out is that nobody knows what they should be getting, so they don't demand it.
Exactly. Well, that is all the time that we have. I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show, Ari, and to everybody watching, we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.